Hi everyone, welcome back to week 31 of my No Buy year. Today we're doing another chat about influencers, and perhaps today we'll answer the question of why society needs them. So firstly, I'm going to cover the question of what services an influencer provides. Firstly, I'd like to make a distinction between influencers and content creators. We're going to revisit this later. So for the first part of this question, what services do influencers provide? We're focusing just on those who are influencers and aren't creating more skills-based content. So these are your lifestyle vloggers and product reviewers, possibly. Or perhaps I should say product recommenders, whose reviews are perhaps not as in-depth and critical as true review channels. So an influencer's job or service, you could say, is to be entertaining, and I would go one step further and say that their job is actually to be a professional parasocial friend for their viewers. Part of their profession is to actually not just be a friend, but to be kind of a popular person. By having a lot of followers, they represent a popular person in society, and therefore their presence and their sharing of their life and you viewing it sets up this parasocial friendship with a popular person in society. So you then get to be a friend with the popular person. So again, this is not including the people presenting information that they've studied extensively to gain or have life experience and are trying to add some value through the basis of their content alone. This is more the influencer category, where it's mostly sharing everyday lifestyle, relatable content to general humanity, and possibly product reviews or product recommendations. A lot of the times it is stuff oriented. It'll be sometimes super focused on stuff, the PR hauls, the Amazon must-haves, etc. The trends even. And when somebody is working as an influencer, I do think that the motivations need to be examined behind their choice of job. Is it for attention? Is it because they fell into it naturally posting online, their everyday life details and got a following and discovered they could make money from it? Did they set out to make a career of it when they started posting or not? These are all kind of interesting questions to be asked, and I would actually argue that influencers who are not content creators fulfill a need in society that should not be needed. It's like having a professional fake friend online because we don't have real friends in real life or in person. So I guess now I'll share what I consider maybe the three categories of influencer / content creator and how they came to be there, possible motivations, etc., or possibly the services they provide. So the first category is purely influencers. So they're the ones who share the lifestyle, maybe the productivity. It's generally very easily relatable content, the stuff-focused content. The purpose of an influencer is, like I just said, to be popular, to be followed, to be well-liked, to provide a parasocial relationship, to provide recommendations for stuff to buy. They influence you to try something or follow a certain trend. Whether it's an object and stuff-based trend, or even a social trend, or a fashion trend, or a cultural trend, these are the people that share the latest what's. And I would argue as well that the motivation of an influencer to continue influencing is primarily money, because they get their income through sponsorships, affiliate links, they get sent free PR, which they then create more content with and earn more money, and possibly popularity and attention is their other motivating factor. I don't necessarily think that most influencers set out to be a service for people, that they set out to be a friend for people out there, because that's a fairly obscure goal when you share snippets of your own life. I at least know personally, if I'm to start a personal social media account, I'm not posting my real life in the service of other people. Maybe I want to connect with people I know in real life and share what's going on in my life as a kind of legitimate social interaction. But when I think about doing that for strangers, it's not really providing a service, at least in my opinion. If I share that I went on a road trip this summer to people on the internet, strangers, I don't necessarily expect them to benefit in any way from knowing that about my life. I would expect maybe my friends and family that I know in real life to have a very small amount of interest perhaps. But beyond that, I can't really fathom, and maybe this is a me problem, but beyond that, I can't really fathom anybody looking at this as a service. So if I extend that to influencers, do I really believe that they start posting on their channels lifestyle content in the hopes that it will serve someone else. I understand the search for relatability and community among certain areas of the population. You know, I'm kind of thinking of moms here, stay-at-home moms kind of lack a community, other members of society, you know, societal groups. But I just have this sense that influencers aren't necessarily focused on the service they provide. Maybe this is a hot take, maybe I'm gonna get roasted for this. All right, the second category of influencer content creator online is purely content creators. So it's like the other end of the spectrum. You've got the influencers and the content creators. The content creators are motivated by the content itself. They would share without anybody following them because they believe that their ideas are important, or their information that they're sharing is important, or perhaps they're getting something out of it themselves. So it's like that saying how the best way to learn something is to teach it. Sometimes the best way to consolidate information for yourself is to explain it for someone else. And that's actually kind of why I'm here. Not to say that, oh, I'm in this best category of content creators. That's not why I'm laying all this out and then associating myself with that. But if you've been on this channel and observed my content, you will know that I am very kind of selfish in what I post. I will be informed by people's comments on my material, but I'm not here to please other people. I'm not here asking people to subscribe for the sake of it. I was at the beginning of my channel because I didn't really know how to post on YouTube, but I'm not gonna have flashy subscribe graphics or tell you to like my videos. I appreciate it when you do, don't get me wrong. But my purpose here is to learn, to share a real person's journey on the path of personal change, and perhaps to delve deeper into the subjects of how to actually do that in ways that I've never seen before. And I am actually benefiting more than anybody out there from doing this. So that's why I would say somebody like me is a content creator. I would do this even if nobody was watching. I'm not motivated financially. I'm not motivated by follower counts, popularity, and I think there are many people out there in this category as well. So the people who are highly specialized in something and share it because they truly love it. These people sometimes do get massive followings and massively popular. And in fact, some of the biggest gurus on how to grow a YouTube channel will recommend that you don't do it if you're interested in popularity and money. You need to do it for a passion. So in that way, it's kind of, you know, perhaps many creators are actually content creators. And then this kind of leads me to the third category of the content creator turned influencer. Or, in other words, the hybrid categories. Not necessarily saying that the content creator is turned 100% influencer, but I am saying that at certain points of a content creator's career or experience posting online, sharing videos or little snippets of themselves, many of them will get the opportunity, if they amass a big enough following, to be sponsored, to receive PR, to be paid in other ways for the work that they do. So then their motivation becomes a little bit intertwined with the first two categories, right? So they got financial motivation now with the influencing side, and the passion motivation with the content creation side. I would love to say that I don't think that there are many category ones out there, influencers just influencing for the sake of it. But I actually don't feel qualified to give that kind of judgment. So I'm not going to. I'm just sharing this as a framework to think about the content you see. Is this being created from a content creator passionate about sharing the subject in their video? And I don't want to say that shopping is less valuable than specialized content, but if somebody's content is just a shopping haul, to me, that's an influencer. This might be another philosophical discussion for another day. I think the best case scenario for influencing content is category 3, where you have a content creator turned partly influencer. And this is where things need to be examined once again to balance the quality of content to the influence, or balance the value of the content you see versus the influence you are also exposed to. So I guess let me outline this further. In the best case scenario, you are exposed to new information, new ideas, actually helpful tips and advice from people on this community, on this platform of YouTube. And that is a wonderful thing. It might even just be pure entertainment. People do the work to compile these videos, to share their ideas, to sit down and journal and think about things, or to compile outlines of highly skilled information, to show themselves doing these things that might be helpful to other people, you know, how-tos, recipes, fitness, all of these very valuable things. People do deserve to be compensated for work that they do, even if it's in an artistic way, art that they are putting out to the world, creations that they are putting out into the world, if we don't want to call a recipe video artistic, although there's some creative artistic element to any video online. I think I believe that to be true in a genuine way. So it's not wrong to be compensated for doing that type of work. It's not wrong to seek further compensation for doing that type of work. But I think the situation has to be managed carefully so that the trade-off is fair for everybody involved, so that the viewers of the creator don't feel like the shift is a total 180 and that the value of the content is no longer there, or that the value of the content is now overshadowed by the influence, the sponsored content, the pull of exterior motivation, the prescription of dialogue that a sponsorship may bring to a channel. The original content has to be worth the interruption of all of that. And obviously the judgment of a viewer will not be universal or objective. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion of every creator's work. That's true whether they're sponsored or not. I know I've talked about situations where I've either unfollowed or limited my consuming of content when it became clearly not worth it anymore to me, where creators originally promised me something by clicking their videos that I felt like I was no longer getting, or that if I was getting, it was so diluted by the amount of PR and sponsored content, the kind of influenced recommendations of things that I didn't want to see, things that I didn't want to be exposed to. And these creators that I'm referring to even still have a big following and still have many, many people that find it valuable and worth the distraction of the ads. The ads are not diluting the original message for them, or the ads are not making it worth not spending time online with that person and their content. And to some degree, even loyal viewers who I was arguing in a previous video, a creator should always think about their loyal viewers and how they might get annoyed by repeated ads and sponsorships because they're the ones who watch all of your content. But even a loyal viewer may also be happy to know that their favorite creators are receiving money and compensation for the work that they do and for their presence on the platform, and therefore will be incentivized to keep being here on the platform and creating the content that the viewers enjoy. So that's not a bad thing. All I'm here to say is that, in my opinion, in many instances that I have been seeing, it is not worth the levels of sponsorship, distraction, influence. Some of the content that I see and used to watch is no longer worth it. Or the ratio of the ad-based content to the kind of original content is no longer acceptable for me. The other reason I'm sharing this is because I had not considered that before I removed myself from the buying community. Now that I no longer have the option to buy things, I find the recommendations to buy things increasingly annoying. And if I wasn't evaluating this before, then there's a chance that some of you out there are also not evaluating it from an objective lens. And I guess I'm just encouraging you to maybe think about that. Is the content worth any influence that you're exposed to? And if it is, you're good to go. That's great. Go on and consume the content with a good conscience. If you are impervious to their ads and sponsorships, good for you. If you are not bothered morally that they might be selling out a little bit, good for you. And again, good for them. They're making their money, and I have nothing against that personally or even in principle. One can also ask if YouTube as a platform is worth the exposure to ads. And in my personal case, it's not the manufactured ads that got me. So YouTube as a platform is still worth it to me. The ads enable creators to have their voice out here on a public platform. And in channels like mine that are only ad monetized, they do enable the creator to have a small kickback for what they put out there without being affiliated directly with any companies or sponsors. So that actually is kind of nice. However, if you are affected by company ads and targeted marketing, I know that the algorithms follow you around on the internet as well. And you might notice that if you've Googled a brand, that brand will suddenly come up in your YouTube ads. And if that affects you, then perhaps consider whether or not it's worth it to have this platform targeting ads at you to just consume your favorite content. And I know purchasing YouTube Premium is an option that they offer as well to get rid of that exposure. And I'm not here saying that it's worth it or not worth it to consume content on YouTube at all. I will say that I am a huge consumer of YouTube content, so that biases me to the side of thinking that it is valuable, it's a good resource, and it's possibly, to me, more worth it than it should be for the ad exposure. Ultimately, we should not be letting anybody exterior to ourselves tell us what to think, what to want, what to value. Nobody outside of ourselves should be able to make us buy anything. But that doesn't negate the fact that the psychological tricks or the effects of marketing do tend to wear us down, and some of us more than others. I think I talked about it in my last video where I hypothesized that my own personality is more susceptible to influence than perhaps the next person's. But the bottom line is, whatever you need to do to learn to not give the exterior forces the power to influence you, to make you want certain things, to make you think certain ways, unless you fully believe it yourself and condone it from within yourself. You know, once you've been exposed to an idea or even a product recommendation, fully evaluating it for yourself in a removed way, separate from the source, right? So you could be sure that you really identify with this idea or this thing or this value. But to summarize, I guess, to me now, I feel like my era of advice seeking on the internet from influencers or content creators is coming to an end. I'm becoming much more specific in the advice that I'm seeking and much more particular in the content that I'm consuming. A lot of the categories of content that I used to consume for advice and inspiration in the past, I've realized are so impersonal as to not be useful to me anymore. So these are things like fitness, diet, style. Personal style is a huge one. I am still working on my week of style in the era of influence videos, and I have just come to the realization that the general personal style advice did more harm to me than help. So I'm going to unpack that later. Sorry to leave you hanging. But in general, the advice online is not personal enough for me to find true benefit in it anymore. Maybe it's just hitting my 30s. But more and more I see that people have to act like kind of general life gurus or general gurus of the subject that they're talking about in order to be more popular, more clickable, more relatable, more successful online. To me, this kind of diminishes the authenticity of what they're sharing. And it kind of even closes the window into the glimpse of them as a full person. And I'm not trying to say that everybody needs to share their true authentic self online or that it should be treated as more than a job. Again, there's so many value judgments here that I'm not trying to make in this discussion. For these reasons, as well as the fact that I think perhaps I've said all I need to say, this might be my last video specifically focusing on influencers and influencer integrity and the ideas of why they exist and perhaps the problems of sponsorships and motivations and things like that. So if this rubbed you the wrong way, you can rest assured that perhaps this is the last time that I'll rub you in this specific wrong way. Let's cut that out, shall we? To conclude this video, I wanted to do a thought exercise. One of my comments brought to my attention that there are circumstances in which other people, not online influencers or content creators, have to do things that don't align with their values in order to make money as well. And this made me think about my own life and the times that I have done things that don't line up 100% with my personal values in order to make money. I'm a musician. I'm sorry if this sounds like a broken record kind of thing. I say it in many of my videos because that is my real job, my everyday job, and the job I will never quit, regardless of if influencer opportunities are presented to me. I have done gigs before that kind of support things that I do not personally support. Now, I've never done a gig that supports something that I think is genuinely bad or evil or problematic, but I'm actually never going to truly know if I'm supporting something problematic underneath the surface. So for context here, I play in a symphony orchestra, and while that company may or may not have any problems in its depths or whatever, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about freelance gigs, which are more nebulous. So I could be playing for an event that I don't really know, what it's for. I'm just being background music. I've played for many, many, many weddings, and obviously I don't know the couple getting married. I don't know any of the families. Sometimes, the religious affiliations might be different than any I might hold. I'm not going to discuss religion on this channel at all, so please don't ask me about that, at least right now. Never say never. But the point is, I have done work or accepted pay from sources that I don't truly know if they line up with my values. So what makes it okay for me to do that as a musician and not as okay for somebody to do that with an online sponsorship? And I guess I kind of arrive at the conclusion that it is okay for everybody. But in my assessment, my personal value judgment, again, I'm getting kind of tangled in knots here. But in my personal opinion, let's just say, because the skill of providing music is so highly specialized, I am still offering something of value to somebody at that event that is not affiliated with that event. So my sponsor might believe something, but the product that I'm presenting, my content, I guess, stands on its own. And I think, to me, that is perhaps the best summary judgment. If a creator's content stands on its own and is valuable enough to overshadow the sponsorship, to provide value beyond the capacity to influence, right? If the message you leave with after the video is resoundingly the topic of the creator's mind, what they intended to communicate, and not detracted from by HelloFresh or AG1 or BetterHelp or whatever it might be, perhaps that is the new standard for which I'm going to view content creators. And perhaps that could be a useful tool of measuring whether it's worth it for you to continue to watch your favorite content creator. I don't know. The bottom line is, in my opinion, that is the way to influence with integrity, is to make sure that your content stays true to its values and stays effective in its communication. And the practical meanings of that might mean that you limit the amount of ads that you do, you limit the amount of sponsorships that you take, or you create additional content that's not sponsored or not ad focused, so that the balance of the influence on your channel, on your work output, remains reasonable, or remains at a level that is not going to annoy your viewers. That your presence on the internet goes far beyond the contrived relatability that a viewer might get by buying the stuff that you talk about. I forgot. Part of the reason this is coming up one more time, though, is that I recently saw an Upworthy article on my Google feed that was talking about how, if given $1 billion, somebody was talking about how the next generation wants to be influencers once again. Not content creators, but influencers, for the motivations of the popularity and attention. A group of people were asked if they were given $1 billion, what would they do? And the 22-year-old said that they would be an influencer. The meaning there being that they would buy the likes and the follows and the stuff to show in the videos and to have the right marketing and brand managing to become a successful influencer online. So the motivation was attention and popularity and being able to do the kind of work that's, you know, the work influencers do, recommending stuff and getting paid for it. Just living your life and getting paid for it. It's kind of like saying that they want to be popular enough that people want to do what they do, have what they have, share in that experience with them. This is another tidbit about content creators and their message. I think if you leave with the feeling that their intent was to sell you something, that is a sign that their content has become overshadowed. Some of these thoughts were much better summarized in a video by a really big creator, Tiffany Ferg, who does social commentary essays. So feel free to check out her video as well. The other thing that blew my mind a little bit was that payment for views, payment for clicks, payment for ad exposure is literal payment for popularity in a way. Like, the more people who click on your video, the more money you will make. We've reached the point where there's actually a financial reward for being popular to people. And sometimes you're popular because you add value, and other times you're popular just because you're cool. So I don't know, these are just the thoughts that I've been mulling over recently. I feel like this video has been a bit of a mess, but I hope that there's been something of value in here for those of you who have chosen to watch. I hope that I have not disappointed you or accidentally alienated you with my poor choice of language in some cases, because it was kind of a struggle for me to express what I really think here. If anybody wants to complain in the comments, feel free. I read and respond to as many as I possibly can. Finally, to conclude, the reason I'm sharing this is because maybe it could provide helpful context or framework for some of you watching to think of the different categories of content online, whether it's influencing, content creating, a mix of the two, where you are on your spectrum of, is it okay, is it worth it, is it valuable? And does the content stand alone, or is it overshadowed by whatever exteriorly motivated pieces, sponsored segments, PR, external motivations that there could be in the creation of the content itself? Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Bye for now, and I will see you in the next one. So I came across this term recently in a YouTuber newsletter, actually, of fellow travelers. And I since added it to my YouTube bio. You might have seen it already if you're new here or if you happen to check that. I love the meaning of this so much, and it really encapsulates what I'm trying to do here. So as somebody who started a no-buy year in 2024 and is just sharing the real raw truth of my experience, I am not an expert. I'm not a guru. I'm not trying to position myself as somebody who knows more than you. I'm a fellow traveler on this journey, and our paths may be crossing, and we might travel together for part of this way. And I'm here to learn just as much from you as you learn from me. If indeed you're interested in learning in the first place. I'm not trying to push that judgment on you either. Fellow Travelers is also a John Adams string quartet that I really love. So if you want a music recommendation from the classical world, check out Fellow Travelers by John Adams.